Meeting to order. If you could please rise. Brief moment of silence. And the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Campion?
Here.
Mr. Dipper? Mrs. King?
Here.
Mr. American?
Here.
Mr. Schuler?
Here.
Mr. Tomby?
Here.
Mayor O'Brien?
Here. I'm going to read the Statement of Compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to the requirements of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice filed in the office of the Borough Clerk, posted on the Borough website and on the bulletin board in the municipal building, published as a legal notice in the Co-Star newspaper, and mailed to those requesting notice and providing payment in accordance with Borough policy. The first item is our approval of the agenda. Right. There's no changes to the agenda, right? You had this in- Okay, so the agenda as you have it. Can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tomby?
Yes.
Next, we have the approval of the minutes for the January 9th, 2017 meeting.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tomby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And next, we have a presentation. Courtney Oliver Middleton, who recently turned 100 years old.
Thank you.
You don't have to get up, I can read it to you here. You want to get up?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to stand?
Wherever you want to stand, wherever you're comfortable. You want to stand right there? Yeah, perfect. Whereas Courtney Oliver Middleton was born in South Carolina on January 21st, 1917, and moved to Asbury Park, New Jersey at the age of 5. And whereas Courtney Oliver Middleton was inducted into the United States Navy on June 11th, 1943, and served until November 23rd, 1945, returning to Asbury Park where he started his own business, Mayfair Auto Laundry. And whereas in 1952, Courtney married the love of his life, Evelyn Garrett, and together they raised their 4 sons, Henry, Mark, Benjamin, and Tracy, that have given Courtney and Evelyn their 8 grandchildren. And whereas Mr. and Mrs. Middleton purchased their newly built home at 567 Prospect Avenue in 1961, where they still reside, and whereas Courtney Oliver Middleton, or Co, as he is fondly called, CO, sorry, CO, that's why it's capitalized, joined Midland Glass Company, where he worked for 25 years, and then retired, which lasted for only 2 years, when he began his new career at Eastern Dental Firm, where he worked until the age of 93. Whereas now, therefore, be resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights that today we honor Courtney Oliver Middleton. He is congratulated and wished a very happy 100th birthday, and that best wishes bestowed for many more. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joe. Happy birthday to you.
Sure.
Every day is a holiday. Every day is a holiday.
With all the negative news, it's nice to have something positive to speak about, isn't it? We do not have any scheduled public hearings. Which brings us to the public comment section. If you would like to speak about agenda items only, please approach the chair, state your name, your address, and say what you got to say. Seeing no hands, can I get a motion to close the public comment?
Make that
section?
motion.
Second.
The next item on the
Can I do a
agenda.
roll call, Mayor?
Oh, sure you can.
Thank you. Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Merrick?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tompe?
Yes.
We're closed.
We have one discussion item on the agenda, and that's the status of our capital programs.
Yes, Mayor, I believe everyone on the council has the summary listing.
Yes.
As it is our practice, on a somewhat regular basis, every month to 6 weeks, we just provide an update on the various capital projects, pending grants and purchases. To start on page 1, under the grant applications, a couple of items of note. You'll see that the Monmouth County Open Space Grant has been marked as a completed project. Included with the packet at the rear is the letter from Monmouth County, which is indicating that the application that was submitted for the community center playground improvements will not be funded in this round. The next item, Green Acres program, we've noted that the application deadline is February 15th, and it is recommended that the council considers either submitting the community center playground improvement project that was not funded under the county program, that be considered for funding consideration of the state Green Acres program. Or alternatively, I know there have been ongoing discussions regarding improvements to Veterans Tribute Park, also known as the Fletcher property. That's something the council may wish to consider. As the application for the community center playground improvements have already been completed for the submission to Monmouth County Open Space, that's kind of a ready-to-go project that would involve not too much additional work to put it together. Additionally, February is the deadline for submission of municipal aid applications, and it is recommended that the Wall Road milling and paving, by way of background, I think everyone's familiar that the New Jersey Gas Company is just about completed the installation of a new gas line along Wall Avenue, Wall Road, and on the adjacent streets and roads. And we expect that as part of that project, the gas company will be resurfacing half of that road. So that will leave the other half that will start to show its age, and it's been recommended by the borough engineer that that be given a high consideration for submission to the state DOT municipal aid program. Moving on to DPW vehicle and equipment purchases. We are on track. The roll-up container truck has been received, and by the way, that item will be removed from this for the future. Recycling compactors, we're moving ahead with that project. A little issue there is the electric service is under review by JCP&L, as we do not have three-phase electric service at the Public Works facility. So that may change the budget somewhat, but we'll know more once JCP&L completes their review. The Kubota utility vehicle has been ordered, and delivery is expected, very soon. Originally, it was expected by February 1st. I believe there's a little bit of a delay there, but that should be delivered in February. New item to the list, the vehicle maintenance lift. We are showing that as a second quarter of this year project. We have estimates. The actual funding has not been determined. We'll have more discussion of that during our budget discussions. Moving on to buildings and grounds, a couple of items of note. The DPW site remediation, that project is ongoing. We have completed the second round of sampling, groundwater testing. The next part of that process is to have a updated map survey of the wells completed, and in anticipation of the submission of the groundwater report to the state DEP in March. The fire siren was an item that has been on hold. We have recently revised those proposals Those revised proposals have been received, and there's been some tentative discussion about scheduling a presentation to the council at the second meeting in February. And if that's agreeable, we'll move forward on that.
I have no, I mean, why don't we, does anybody have objections to that?
Can we do it sooner?
We could do it at our next meeting, although I believe that the scheduling with the vendor that precluded that, so we're looking at the second meeting in February.
And I also have another question. Why are we presenting it when we already presented this once?
Well, the last presentation was done before council. There was a substantial amount of public comment. It was referred to the council, and there was under review as to a separate location, an alternate location instead of replacing the siren at the firehouse. That's really the issue, and with that, there is a change of equipment that would be necessary. So we are looking at a final determination on the location as well as the equipment to be selected. Moving on to parks and repairs and maintenance under the community center improvements. Two items of note there. We have submitted as of today a request to the county community development block grant program for a grant extension under the original grant agreement that was set to expire at the end of March. Obviously, we are not going to make that timeline. Additionally, we had attempted to have a presentation back in December. There were concerns of new members of council coming on board. So we're looking at doing a presentation in front of the council at our next meeting in February. That will be on the 13th. Finalize those plans so we can go out to bid.
In your experience, is there typically resistance to extending the grant?
There isn't. I've had previous conversation with the representative from CDBG, and it's understood that projects run into problems, and it is not uncommon.
Great, thanks.
Moving down, just a couple of items that are pending under the parks. We have lighting controls. We're waiting the second quote. Those are lighting controls at both the Joseph Robertson Alair Road Park as well as the Ocean Road Bicentennial Park. Moving on to our road and drainage. The Warren Avenue traffic signal has been completed by Monmouth County. Likewise, that project will come off this list for future reference. Likewise, the New Jersey Natural Gas Company, the note here is that the project is 95% completed. And it is still the plan by the gas company to do the road restoration in the spring. We've added the Wall Road milling and paving, and again, you see we have the estimate there of approximately $150,000. And we are identifying funding as either being in the 2017 budget or as part of the DOT grant. By way of background, the DOT municipal aid project, Crosby Road, Norman Terrace, as the council is aware, all state-funded projects were put on hold last fall as a result of the funding issue at the state level with the Transportation Trust Fund. That has now been addressed at the state level. We went ahead and separated that project that was originally intended to cover Crosby Road, Jeanette Court, and Norman Terrace. Jeanette Court was completed. That project was done in December. We are looking to revise the plan to address just the Crosby Road and Norman Terrace portion. And the borough engineer has recommended that the next project, the Mercer Avenue improvements, that those projects be, they go out to bid at the same time. We feel we need to get beneficial pricing that way. And both of those projects are scheduled or have been identified as being second quarter projects for this spring. As I mentioned, the Jeanette Court project is completed. Moving on, the Warren Avenue or the railroad crossing, that project is essentially completed. There's some additional painting that needs to be done there. That is a New Jersey Transit, New Jersey DOT combination project. The other three drainage projects are pending. The Lake and 10th Avenue storm drain is now scheduled for a third quarter, and again, we have not identified the specific funding for that. We anticipate that to be included in our 2017 budget.
Is there a time frame on you? I mean, it mentions the Park Avenue Route 71 drainage. on that, is there a time frame on a project for 71? I mean, it says a 71 ADA project.
I haven't gotten a positive response from DOT, after I got more resistance because of recent meeting. And until we come up with ulterior means or motive, we have a very hard to stay road over today. The way to remedy that is to come up with 71, bring the storm drainage down.
Because right now, there's one drain at the bottom of that hill, right? And whenever there's any volume of water, that drain can't handle it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I actually have been in contact, because as of recently as last month, they're redoing the handicap ramps that they did a few years ago because they're not all of them are compliant. So
Okay.
they're revisiting that project. I have talked to the consulting engineers they hired. I requested to them if they consider this as part of that work, since they're doing work. I haven't got a comment, I haven't received that yet, and that's where we're at.
That would be great if we could get them to pick one.
I'm just happy to let us do it. That's the really big.
Okay. Well, how big a job do you think it is?
It's probably a $200,000 job easy.
Okay.
The biggest issue they have is the recent paving efforts. They frown on projects after they pave. Understandable.
As we do when we pave a road.
Yes.
Moving on to page 4, the water sewer utility. On the water side of the utility operation, we have identified continuing the hydrant and valve replacement program that was initiated several years ago, and we anticipate completing 6 hydrants and 3 valves during the current year. The well closure, that project, as you recall, we went out to bid last summer. We are now out to bid for with a revised set of plans, essentially providing for a 180-day completion period. It is hoped that with a wider window of construction, or in this case, sealing of the well, that we'll get better prices. Those bids are scheduled to be received on February 16th. The unmetered services, those are ongoing projects, a combination both in-house as well as contract for some locations. Onto the sewer side, the pump station improvements, that's the hazard mitigation grant program grant in the amount of $585,000 is funding that. We have engaged the design engineer. We expect, Joe, sometime in February, March, those designs should be completed.
In March, we'll have some preliminary plans of those designs to show the council, be some options, different budget considerations.
Depending on, that is realistically anticipated to be a late year project after the summer peak sewer flow. So more than likely, we're looking at an October construction time. Although, because this involves both of the pump stations, they will be done separately. Obviously, we can't shut down the 2 largest wastewater pump stations at the same time.
What engineering firm is doing that?
H2M is the design firm.
And how?
Thank you.
The Fairway Muse pump station, those improvements, as you know, the schedule there was shifted as we had the generator go out late last fall. So the generator replacement was completed, and now we're back into the Fairway Muse wastewater pump station. Again, the issue there is that will be a late year project for the same reason we can't shut more than one of the pump stations down at any given time. Sewer main replacement or repair, that's Bright Lane. That project is also out to bid. We will be receiving bids next week for that, and that's set up with an alternate as either a relining or a direct replacement, depending on which prices. It's been bid both ways, so we can gauge what the price difference, if any, is on the method of repair.
We've confirmed that as a candidate for relining. It's not going to be we start relining and have to replace. Okay.
On the utility vehicle side, the jet vac has been, was received, and again, this is the last time you'll see that on the list. Now that we're into the 2017 year, that will be removed. And the utility vehicle That project has been ordered and delivery is expected by April 1st. Also, just one additional item attached to the listing is correspondence from the State of New Jersey Department of Health. As you're aware, the Department of Health had received a complaint regarding the community center in terms of mold and/or asbestos. The inspections have been completed. The Department of Health has closed the file and determined that whatever was there has been addressed.
Excellent.
Jay, I have a question back on road and drainage. Ludlow Avenue between Route 71 and the railroad, there is a neighbor that lives in that vicinity that has been consistent with complaints about the water on his property. Joe and I had a long talk, you and I had a long talk about it. Are we keeping that gentleman aboard on a consistent basis like we promised we were going to do as to what's going on?
I think, well, last time we looked at it, the person needs to remedy their apron, not a federal issue per se.
But did we tell him that?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I think we need to follow up. Okay?
Thank you very much, Jay. That's all we have for discussion items, which brings us to our mayor and council reports and announcements. We'll start with Joe. Do you have any reports or announcements?
Nothing for me, everything is fine.
Nothing for me.
Same here.
Nice.
You're
Okay. That brings us to our reports, notices, and correspondences. We have a report from the municipal court for December. We have the Spring Lake Heights monthly police report, the Spring Lake Heights monthly police report, the annual report, and the December report. We have a public notice of the South Monmouth Regional Sewage Authority amendment. Public notice from the Board of Chosen Freeholders from their meeting on February 9th, which is amendments to the Solid Waste Management Plan. Notice of public hearing for the Spring Lake Heights Board of Adjustment regarding 1218 Ocean Road. And thank you all for coming, and happy birthday one more time. We have the Colts Neck Township Resolution number 2017-18A, the Criminal Justice Reform Act, and also one from the Borough of Allentown regarding that same Justice Reform Act. We have no ordinances to introduce at this time, which brings us to our resolutions. Our first resolution is R 2017-39, a resolution of the Borough Council approving the person-to-person transfer of an alcoholic beverage controlled culinary retail consumption license from Shore Culinary LLC to Spring Lake Banquets Operations LLC.
We're starting with 37.
Well, they're starting with 37.
It's in your old.
It's in my old packet. 37, which is the authorizing the transfer of the 2016 municipal budget appropriation reserves. How about we start with that?
Okay.
Okay, second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tompey?
Yes.
The next is resolution number 2017-38, authorizing the cancellation of property taxes and refund of taxes paid for disabled veterans.
Make the motion.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tompey?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And the next one is R 2017-39, which is the liquor license transfer. And that's for the Spring Lake Manor? Or no?
Millen.
Oh, Millen, sorry.
Don't know that.
It says that right there in the ordinance, yeah.
Motion.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tompey?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next is resolution R 2017-40, approving the use of the Ocean Road Park tennis courts for the Spring Lake Heights School.
Motion. Second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tomby?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And finally, Resolution R 2017-41, approving payment of the itemized claims on the January 20th, 2017 bill list.
I will make that motion.
Second.
And Mayor, just if I may, regarding the bill list resolution, in light of the fact that the January 23rd meeting was canceled,
Yes.
pursuant to the previously adopted cash management plan of the borough that allows for the prepayment prior to council's authorization for selected items dealing with utilities, state, county, and school taxes. Those payments have been made, and they are included in this bill list, but just for the record, wanted to bring
I
that.
signed that check, so I know.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tomby?
Abstain.
Thank you.
That brings us to our public comment section. This public comment section, you can talk about anything, whether it's on the agenda or not on the agenda. If you would like to speak on any subject, please come to the front of the room, address the chair, state your name and address, and say what you're going to say.
Hi, John Cashman, 564 Atlantic Avenue. Two issues. The first one, I wanted to make the council aware that there's a piece of property for sale in the borough that the town may be interested in looking at to purchase. And it's located along Highway 71, just south of St. Stephen's Green. It's owned presently by a Miss Suzette Bettencourt. And it's 121 feet in the front, and it goes back 470 feet. And it's a rather large section of open space. It is heavily wooded at this time, and the reason I'm bringing it to your attention is it's the largest piece of open space left in the borough of Spring Lake Heights. And in fact, if you don't mind me,
I was about to say.
give you that.
I think I know where that is, John.
Yeah, it's
Across the street from my house.
Yeah. And so there's its assessed value is around $800,000, and they're asking $899,000 for it. And it would be a great addition to any open space we have in the town, because really it's going to be the last opportunity to get anything else, because basically we're fully developed. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and maybe you could discuss it and think about it. And I'm sure there's ways, if you wanted it, there's ways to finance that through the open space fund, through grants and whatever. So it's available, it's on the market. That was from January the 19th. I would have mentioned it last week, but the meeting was canceled, so I don't know presently. Maybe somebody else is interested in whatever, but as of now, as far as I know, it's available. So if you can take a look at that.
Thanks, John.
Secondly is the ADP program. Remember last year, in the last council, you all decided to stay in the program. But there was talk that the contract was going to be ending with that particular company that's doing the assessments, and that you might look for another company. So I was wondering, did that ever get sent out as a bid? Was a bid ever put out on that? And did anybody respond, or does anybody know what's happening with that piece?
Mayor, we have, the borough has neither renewed or extended the existing contract or gone out for additional bids.
Yeah.
Where's the timeline on it?
Under the program, we're required to do plus or minus 20%. Actually, technically what we're required to do is complete a reinspection of all properties within a 5-year period. There have been some, that has been typically addressed as 20% per year, although the county tax board has been somewhat lenient in requiring it to be done on that basis. We have not addressed that. It is a budget issue in terms of funding, as well as a determination as to how we will move forward, whether to renew.
But John's correct that our contract for the last cycle is now up, so we would exercise options for the final year, or
That's correct. It's actually the final 1 or 2 years. I believe it was a 3-year contract with 2 1-year extensions.
I'd like to see us put the last 2 years out of it. I don't know if there's a consensus up here, but I'd like to direct the borough administrator to start that process.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with that. We didn't really, the first time we did, we were only given one option, basically, so if there's other vendors out there, I'd like to hear about it.
So correct, that the first part of that contract has ended, it ended on January the 1st, I guess, the year was up or something like that.
More than likely. So the way it was.
So either you have to renew or put it out to bid, so I just want to
Yeah,
bring it to
could
attention
you
because
look into that
it was
and
mentioned earlier.
put that on the agenda for next meeting, please?
Thank you very much.
Sharon Batteau, Beverly Avenue.
Two things. The first thing, I'd just like to comment on the bulk trash subject. I think it's fine the way it is. I really look forward. It's, as a taxpayer, my favorite day of the month. It gives everybody a chance to clean things out. I think if you only have that twice a year, you might find people starting to stuff their garbage with things that isn't garbage, that's like plastic and trash that they don't recycle. And big bulky items, people might start stowing them in their yard for 6 months, and that's not a good look. I do think it's probably a good idea to sort of limit how much you could put out there, because I know people do take advantage of that sometime, but to drastically change it to only twice a year, I don't think is such a great idea.
So you like it monthly?
It's great. I mean, sometimes I don't have things, but, I think it's good for the environment to do that rather than have people sort of sneaking stuff down to recycle and dump and run or anything like that. I just think, it's a nice perk. I think, everybody likes that. Also, I was wondering why we don't have recycling stickers like other towns do. Put on
We
our
should.
cars.
I agree with
Yeah,
that.
Yeah,
just
we
to sort
actually
of
have
control
A
what's
discussion
going.
that we've had to better limit who goes in there, yeah.
And then the last thing is, I was not at the last planning board meeting, but I was at the previous meeting when there was a discussion about the outdoor walk-in cooler at the new restaurant up at Scottyville. But I understand that a lot of residents from Wickham Manor went to the trouble to band together and be at the meeting, and they weren't allowed to speak. And logically, I understand the explanation of the attorney, but I thought it was disrespectful to the property owners at Wickham Manor, especially because any development there, they're going to be affected by it, not the people who are developing the property and don't live in the town. And I think going forward, it's important. I mean, you have an oath of office to protect the residents and taxpayers of Spring Lake Heights, and protect our property values, and to listen to what we have to say about these big changes. And now, there's 2 big parcels right next to Scottyville. There's the Betancourt property, which I think it would be wonderful if we could acquire that as open space, and then there's the Rubinall property next to it. And this is huge, and who knows what could go in there, and it might not be so good for the borough. And we're kind of wedged between the railroad tracks and Highway 35, and now up on Highway 35 there's a new shopping center being built. And, we're getting squeezed here. It would be nice to preserve some open space for the residents. We could do all sorts of things with that. But I'm happy to be able to stand up here and talk to you about anything that's on my mind, and I think it's just really important in all phases of our town government to allow the people who are living here, who are dealing with this prospect of development, to listen to what they have to say. And it's sad that they weren't allowed to speak the other night. And, we just have to
Excuse me,
remember.
I'm on the planning board,
Yeah.
I don't recall that anybody was forbidden to speak. There were several people from Wickham Manor that
Yeah,
did speak.
and I thought that they weren't
Not
allowed
at the
to
last
speak.
meeting, there was not a voice of the public at the last meeting.
No, there wasn't. There was the one before.
I came up and spoke from Wickham Manor about that.
The people who were presenting the actual site adjustments spoke, but the guy who spoke about Wickham Manor spoke at the previous meeting, and he also spoke at the council meeting. Because I spoke to him after the meeting, the group from Wickham Manor, and yeah, they had expressed to me that they would have liked to have had a chance to express their opinion. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons why we, at the council meeting, we do actually have 2 voices of the public. I think it's a good idea to let people, if they've got something to say it.
Yeah, I mean, it's democracy in action.
Yeah.
And.
So, but as I said, I did make an effort to speak to them afterwards, and I heard some of what they said, and I encouraged, they would have been here had this meeting not been canceled last week, to make sure that the council heard exactly what you're saying.
I was here last week.
Sorry. It just was so nasty out, and we
No,
were
I-
presenting, the 100th birthday, and we're like, this is not, and Sarah
No,
said,
no.
maybe this would be a bad idea, and I said, you're right.
Yeah.
This
But
would
I-
be a bad idea.
It would be.
Sorry.
But,
Sorry that you made it out in such horrible
What?
About
weather.
that meeting, the planning board meeting?
I wasn't at the last one, I was
I
at
know,
the one before.
but what did happen, they're allowed to put the box outside, but they will not be allowed to have any noise creating pieces outside. Those will all be
Yeah, the
outside.
compressor was inside the house. It's just,
And we
it's
also
just
made
like a
sure that
closet,
the
basically.
surroundings, the trees and the fence were high enough to completely mask the icebox.
Yeah, I.
Which is
understood
actually
that.
one of the
Thank you.
complaints that the people from Wickham Manor had, was that
Right.
the plantings, they don't feel
Yeah,
in
the
between
icebox
the
was 8
two
feet
properties
tall.
are sufficient. But we actually, one of the things that our borough engineer mentioned, I think at last meeting, when the gentleman from Wickham Manor came and spoke, is that we actually still hold the bond, because we're waiting to see if those plants grow in the way that they say they will, and that's why we haven't returned the bond yet.
Arborvitaes are tricky, they're really tricky. But, and then in closing, I just, want to remind everybody, I'm sure I have to remind you, we're all in this together, and I just appreciate you all keeping that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, John Gilman again. Mrs. Bateau said something that just wanted to make me want to get up and say something. She mentioned, I forgot to mention you when I gave it you that, Mayor. The neighboring property is also up for sale, the Wignall's
Okay.
property. And if those 2 pieces of property are bought by the same developer, it comes out to be a pretty large tract. The piece I gave you was 1.5 acres. It may be twice that if both properties are sold. And so I said that the reason we should buy it is it's the last open space in town. It's also a piece of property that, if it gets bought, could really be developed with something huge could be put in there. And if you might want to consider that also in talking about the town taking it, because if something big is put in there, it's going to change that whole area forever, basically. Thank you.
Seeing no further hands, yeah,
Make a motion, folks?
Second.
that's to close the voice of the public.
I'll do a
Roll call, please.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Tompi?
Yes.
We're closed.
And now can I get a motion to adjourn?
Actually, I have one more thing
Oh,
to throw
well,
out
you've
there.
got it.
I didn't catch it before Mr. Middleton left, and when you read through in the second part, I follow a group on Facebook called the Greatest Generation Foundation. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but it seems more frequently lately. It used to be historical, World War II. It would remind you of events that happened in history. And I'm a big proponent of history because, as the saying goes, I think it's those who don't learn their history are doomed to repeat it. And the gentleman who we just recognized for his 100th birthday, I think, is part of a legacy that my children will never know. He served in the U.S. Navy from June 1943 until November 1945. So I'd like to acknowledge his service to our great nation during a very trying time in global conflict. But I hope that through their sacrifice and what they did for us, we're smart enough to know looking forward not to make the same stupid mistakes over and over again. So I just want to say thank you for your service, Mr. Middleton. I'm done.
Thanks, Chris. So now can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second. Third.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.